أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to True Imaan Media with your host Ath-Tha'ir. Today we have brother Abdullah Al Andalusi from the Muslim Debate Initiative. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Jazakallah khair for coming on our show. As we know, it's Ramadan still, and Ramadan is the month of victory. So today we want to talk about Ramadan, the month of victory. Abdullah, why do we call Ramadan the month of victory?
Well, Ramadan has had a very auspicious history, being the month where Muslims realized some of the most important victories against the odds that served as turning points in Muslim history. We had the Battle of Badr, where against an enemy that outnumbered the Muslims 3-1, the Muslims scored a very important victory that gained them respect and made them a force to be reckoned with in the Arabian Peninsula.
Could you give us more examples to highlight how Ramadan is the month of victory? Like throughout history, was Ramadan that month?
After that, we have the Battle of Qadisiyah, which was a turning point battle against the Persian Empire, where the Muslims were outnumbered 3-1, and facing them were these massive white elephants which were decked in armor, medieval tanks, and Muslims scored massive victory against them. We saw also the Battle of Hittin, where Salahuddin Ayyubi managed to turn around the Western Crusades and basically scored a victory, opening the way off to open Al-Quds and liberate Jerusalem. We also see the Battle of Ain Jalut, where the Mongols, which were believed to be undefeatable, were stopped and reversed by the efforts of Muslims who came together and faced what was at the time the most terrorizing force in the world. So Muslims have taken victory from the jaws of almost certain defeat many times in the month of Ramadan, and so it has always been indelibly inked in the minds of Muslims as the month of victory.
Shouldn't Ramadan be a source of inspiration for our victory? And what does our victory look like today?
Well, I'll say that Ramadan provides victory in kind of two ways, I suppose. First, it gets the Muslim detached from this almost slave-like dependence to instant gratification that we have with food. You'll find that you've been liberated from spending so much time with food. It's amazing how much free time people discover they have during Ramadan, when they don't have to eat or think about going somewhere to eat, or waste time going around and getting snacks, or even waste money going around getting snacks. So it actually frees us from this from slavery to instant gratification that we have, and that allows us then to surmount many of the obstacles we face because of instant gratification, like procrastination. People procrastinate doing work because they're distracted easily. For example, when people go to excess or they binge, Ramadan is meant to be giving us the tools to get this victory in ourselves. At the same time, collectively, it is meant to be strengthening the ummah, for us to remind ourselves of the blessings of food, of the poor, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, the verse in the Quran which came down saying that, you who believe, Allah has ordained upon you fasting like He did for those before you, so that you might acquire taqwa, like righteousness and God consciousness. So there's a purpose for Ramadan, there's a purpose for fasting. It's not just I'm going to starve myself. It's to attain this victory of being righteous before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, improving ourselves, improving our self-control, and also being mindful of other people. That's why, subhanAllah, Ramadan is a month where people pay their zakat, where people pay sadaqah in copious amounts. And this is a victory, should be a victory for us as individuals, helping us to be better Muslims with every Ramadan. We should always be a better Muslim than the Ramadan before it. And likewise, as an ummah, it should be a month of good works and elevation.
I see. What will Ramadan briefly look like once we've elevated ourselves as an ummah? As we know now, we're not exactly in a good state, but once we've elevated ourselves, what does the future Ramadan look like?
Well, I think that in some ways our minds should undergo a type of fasting from distractions which take us away from the serious things that we should address, we're not addressing. What I think that a elevated society, an elevated Muslim society would look like would be that we wouldn't all disagree on when we break up the fast, when the last day Eid al-Fitr is, when we begin our Ramadan. We'd have unity in those matters. I think that Muslims wouldn't binge eat when it's time for fatur. They should eat in moderation as well, because binge eating and sleeping during the day and waking up during being awake during the entire night is not really what Ramadan was intended to be. So I think that if Muslims understand it in a more elevated way, they'd understand and they'd be moderate in their food, and they would also unify, and we should find a means to unify ourselves on these key points.
Jazakallah khair, Abdullah. We thank Allah for sharing your presence with us today.
Ayakum.
That's it from us today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.